Hello and welcome to another great episode of the On the Radar podcast. This is a podcast that features music, interviews, and studio performances from a Midwestern perspective. My name is Peapod, hanging out with you once again. Another great episode from my home front because, lo and behold, in 2021, we're still in a massive pandemic. Hooray. Anyway, what I love about doing this podcast and what I love about doing the show is, like, not only do we get artists and guests on the rise, but we also talk to a lot of artists on the infancy of their journey. What I really love to see them develop over time and hopefully have great success. And another great act, especially in the post-rock world that I love to dabble in, is from St. Louis, Missouri. And I'm very excited to have some good people from the band Sunrise at Sea hanging with me today. Gentlemen, good evening. How are things? How are you doing?
Hey, yo.
Hello.
Good.
Hello.
Echo. I'm very excited to have Keith and Patrick on, and Keith has been a big listener and big supporter of the show for quite some time, and he reached out to me and goes, "Hey, I got a thing. I'd love some coverage on said thing." And I go, "I'm in." So, Keith has been building this project from quite some time, and having his friend Patrick on board as well. But enough about me babbling about your project. Let's talk about your project. Keith, kind of tell me a little bit about yourself and how you're deciding to develop Sunrise at Sea.
Hey, man. I told you I was going to do this. So, first time, long time. All that good stuff. What I'm excited about is that you said anyway and not anyways. That's one of those things that really kind of, so that's all there is about me. As long as you don't say anyways, I'm good. No, I'm joking. Anyway, what was the question? Sunrise at Sea, the beginning of it. So Patrick and I have actually been jamming for it'll be 3 years next month, actually, because I remember it was like May 2018 that we got together. I'd had some song ideas and stuff, and we well, I guess we should say like what we play, right? I guess like I'm guitar, keyboards on occasion, that sort of deal. Yeah, he and I was looking for a bass player. We got delayed a little bit because at the time I was not, and this is before 3 years ago, I was jamming with another friend. And then we ended up joining a band, and then I left a few months later. It was like, it was a lot of fun. Like, I was friends with everybody, but the music wasn't really what I was wanting to do. And so then I reached out to Patrick, and we kind of came together and jammed and got this thing rolling for a couple of years. And we had a drummer at the time. And then about a year ago, actually it was about 2 years ago, we weren't really feeling it, but then we kind of let it go for another year. And then with the pandemic and everything, I just wasn't at the spot where I felt we should have been after 2 years together. So I kind of just like wiped everything clean and went off on my own and changed the name. It was Astronaut Cosmonaut for a while. And then with the pandemic and everything and being isolated and all of that stuff, I'm like, you know what, I'm going to make the most of this and get stuff going. So I kind of relieved everybody of their duties and went and changed the name, changed the logo, changed everything, got the motivation to get everything really, really going. And then made some recordings and got some really good feedback on them. And then at that point, I'm like, well, I guess I should assemble a band. And so I reached back out to Patrick. I was like, hey, dude, like,
he said, hey, I'm getting the band back together.
I'm on a mission from God. No. So anyway, yeah, I hit up Patrick and was like, dude, you want to jam? There wasn't anything personal or anything last year. It was just one of those things where like, I wanted to really get this going and kind of lay a foundation. So that way, there was something to come on board with. Like a lot of the stuff that I've recorded, we played together anyway. It was either I reworked it, restructured, something like that, where it was kind of a minimal thing. but Patrick and I have always gotten along, so there wasn't any reason for me not to have him on board. Now at this point we're looking for a drummer that can handle the recordings I was able to get done, and add something to it, or at least play what's there, that kind of thing. So it's really as simple as that. That's kind of why I'm reaching out to you, because you're like world famous.
Sure. All right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're east of the Mississippi. We're west, so you're famous enough.
That makes sense. Location wise, we do okay. Patrick, tell me a little bit about your musical background and decided to join up with this fine fellow in Keith.
I'm Patrick. I play bass and make noise incessantly. I was in a band for quite a while previously. That band was pretty serious, I guess. Did some touring stuff. I was with them for 5 years, and then kind of, stopped doing music stuff for a couple of years. And then just put out an ad looking for a band, and Keith hit me up, and we just kind of jammed, and we both really like the same shitty emo bands and whatnot, and we just kind of bonded over that, and yeah, I don't know, came together into a cool partnership, I guess.
Define shitty emo bands.
Yeah, for real.
Not shitty. I'm just kidding. Well, I know he loves Sunny Day Real Estate and those Seattle emo bands and Failure, stuff like that. I'm more of the I guess screamo-ish, Reggie and the Full Effect and Alkaline Trio, which he loves them too. But I don't know. Do you remember that game emogame.com? Did you ever play that?
Oh yeah.
It was my intro to oh my god, I love every single band that's on this thing.
Wasn't that you're taking down the members of Friends?
It had many different there
was some kind of emo related platformer action adventure game.
Yeah.
That was on Flash, and I remember one of the bosses was what the fuck his face was from Friends with the monkey.
David Schwimmer.
Yeah, David Schwimmer.
Yeah.
Is that the same? Is that the same one?
Yeah. Yeah. They did 1, 2, 2.5.
Okay, that could have been. Yeah, that could have been one of them.
I just remember I was always Matt Skiba, because he was the one that I liked the most out of all the characters.
I think I always played Matt Skiba because I think it was one of the ones I actually knew at that time.
Well, yeah, or at the drive-in and stuff like that, and people from Braid and Mineral.
Was Thrice in that? I want to say Thrice was in that game.
Oh, wait, my shirt's backwards. My jacket's backwards.
They were probably getting killed or something, but they had I don't know, it was the first one was the Get Up Kids getting you had to fight them, or they were all getting murdered. And
I remember that. I remember the Get Up Kids. Yeah.
There's no way this game could be around today because it's so awful and vile. I don't know.
I think I haven't heard. I just quickly Googled it, and I remember playing it, but I thought it was just one of those few things I just stumbled upon on the internet, on the early internet. I finally got access to not dial up in going into college, so it was one of those things I could actually play. And holy shit, just remembering all that. I wonder, is that game still active? Can you still play it somewhere?
No, they took it down a while ago because the guy that created it, I guess, wanted to get an actual job. So the best thing would be to take that down.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's sad. I hope somebody like emulated it in some sort of fashion. I'm sure they did.
Probably.
Probably. If you look hard enough, you could probably find like the source files or whatever. Something computer related that's more advanced in my time frame or timeline or what I get paid. Anyway, so the style of music then, Keith, what you were trying to do is post rock esque, for lack of a better term.
It is, just because it lacks vocals currently. I really would like to have a singer, because I want like a front person there to kind of interact with people, but at the same time, a buddy of mine's like, dude, just do it yourself. Like, you've done everything else, and you've come that far, and it's easier for you to get what you want with you doing it yourself, as opposed to trying to direct somebody else or whatever. And I'm like, I guess so, but I've never like lead sang in a band before. So it's like scary, but exciting, but also like, I don't know I don't know how to do it. So I'm kind of like in between now.
Well, you can also always do minimal work. A lot of post rock acts have some vocals in it, and even when they do, it's either highly buried into the music, or it's just something very minimal, little words here and there, and then like huge solos and things like that.
Yeah. And Mogwai is definitely a band that I've been taking a cue from with that lately, because I've been listening to them for, oh my God, I think maybe I first heard of them in high school, maybe or maybe a little bit after, maybe like when I was playing the emo band game, I was listening to Mogwai or something. I don't know, but they were. I think they might have been the first post rock band that I had ever listened to, where it's like, oh, there's rock music, sort of like a different structure, but with no words. Like, it's not like jazz or like a Rush instrumental or something like that. It's like it's different. It's in a different vein. And so I've always kind of liked that idea of more like cinematic type music, like where it's I think this is from a band, and I wish I could remember which band it is so I could quote it, but I believe it was your podcast I was listening to. There was a band that said that they make like cinematic music on rock instruments. Does that sound familiar? It's
Probably,
something like that.
I'm thinking it's Pillars.
Oh, possibly. I mean, yeah, that's how I first heard of your podcast in the first place, was through them, because actually the first band, it was me, Patrick, and our drummer. The first band name I had was Peers, Peers, and then I came. Pillars kind of came in there, and I'm like, oh, well, this is sort of like Pillars. And then even all of our internet handles were the same. It was Pillars the band, Peers the band, and I'm like, shit. Then the band Pairs got big, and I'm like, fuck, okay, let's change the names. And then it became Astronaut Cosmonaut. Then it became Sunrise at Sea, which Sunrise at Sea was a contender for band names whenever we selected Astronaut Cosmonaut. But then I for some reason broke the tie or whatever it was to go with Sunrise at Sea. But so Pillars was one of the they weren't one of the first bands I listened to, but they were how I kind of got plugged into you. Was having them, I think it might have been I don't remember, because this is all like 2 years ago. It was whenever the first Post Fest happened. And Justin Mills, he makes Mills custom amps in St. Louis, and he makes Patrick's amps for him. And he sponsored or he backlined the first Post Fest or something like that. Like that was.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah, it might have been that was how I heard of it. But then Staghorn played, and they're from St. Louis at the time. I think now they're in Champaign or whatever. But
I think they're right outside of Chicago, so Champaign, Illinois. At least one of the members is now. I know they're doing a little restructuring themselves. So
yeah. But so they're all from like St. Louis, and I've met them a couple times. I'm not real like friendly with them. So I couldn't tell you who's in the band, but I just know, they were one of those bands that, like I was familiar with. I know, Patrick, weren't you like kind of a big fan of theirs, or you'd go to their shows whenever they would play around here, right?
Wearing their shirt.
Oh,
Did
nice.
you know?
No, it's backwards.
I didn't notice it right away.
It's backwards,
Yeah,
so I can't tell. But yeah, so I mean, there you go. But yeah, that was somehow or another, through all that is how I got connected to your podcast. And I listened, and the great thing about it is that I would listen, I'd be like, okay, well, this is a cool band name. Let me listen to it. So I'd listen to what they had to say. I'm like, yeah, I'm in the same boat. I can relate to a lot of this. And then the music comes, I'm like, this is pretty rad. And so a lot of the bands that I've been listening to or discovered over the last couple of years are from your podcast. So, thanks for that. But also, it's just a great kind of scene that you guys have going on up there. And that I kind of hit you up. I tried to get on the first Post Fest. I recall that because I'm like, oh, we could just, we don't have a singer. We could totally fit in, just play these, rock songs with no words, and no one's going to know any different, but I think I submitted us a little too late or something. It didn't work out. No big deal. And I was like, we're going to do the second year. And that would have been 2019, I think. And that was, I think that one was, I was like waiting to hear like for band submissions and never did. And then it was like, oh, sorry, we're already closed. We already have enough bands. Like, well, damn it. Okay, we'll do 2020. Well, 2020 came and like the end of the fucking world. So, whenever it comes around again, I'm hoping to be able to get us on there for that, because
they're discussing, last time I checked, they're discussing whether or not to do something in 2021, which in my personal opinion, I don't think that is a good move. The only reason I say that is because we're still in like this little wishy-washy phase of the pandemic where it's like half vaccinations and like how slowly or how fast are we going to open up, and different states have different guidelines, and it's just a big fucking mess. Let's just be completely honest. So
definitely.
I think to be better safe than sorry is just to do a 2022 when we know, hopefully, knock on wood, this is all said and done. But it's pretty solid to hear that, and I'm greatly honored that, hopefully this was a great platform. And that was the whole point of the show, is just, giving more platforms to people that we need to get in touch with, and, people need to realize what's going on out there, and, beyond the world of what you see on radio or lack thereof from MTV or the big musical blogs or whatever. And the post-rock world is just fascinating to me. Patrick, what about, do you have any interest in the post-rock world? Is it something that you were just like, I'll jump on and play whatever? Or is there something that speaks to you about this type of music?
I don't know specifically. I'm a fan of all music, so my interests are all over the place. So, but I mean, of all the post-rock bands I've heard, I've really enjoyed them. And yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot of bands that I like that incorporate those kind of elements, but they don't necessarily classify themselves as post-rock. So.
People ask me all the time, Peapod, how easy is it to start a podcast? And it's relatively simple. Get yourself a good microphone, know a good subject, and of course, find a great hosting service. And Anchor.fm is the place to go to. Anchor can distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and all the other places people listen to podcasts from. There's also creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. You can even make money from your podcast, whether you have one subscriber or thousands of subscribers. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place, and I highly recommend it. Download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor.fm to get started. Once again, find the free Anchor app wherever you download your apps from or Anchor.fm. The world of post is so like it's so many genres. It's just like if you just think of a Venn diagram of the world of like, you know, post-hardcore and emo and like noise and like, you know, metal and like ambient, like the big middle is like the post world. So like you can have bands like the Appleseed Cast in the same breath. You can have like Chicago's Loom in there. You can have Holy Fawn in there, who, you know, before the pandemic hit was doing stuff with Thrice, you know.
Actually, yeah, I saw them in Chicago, opening for Thrice when they did their Visu tour. That was the last concert I saw. Actually, it was January 31st of last year was the last concert I saw, and Dustin was from Thrice was like dying of the flu. I have no idea how he made it through the set, but he did, like, you know, because they played Visu from front to back, and usually they play The Earth Will Shake as their last song, which there's a lot of screaming in that song, and he did it, but he looked like he was going to pass out like third song in, and he made it all the way through. Plus, I think maybe 2 or 3 songs as an encore. And then the next day they were supposed to be in Detroit and they had to cancel because he was like dead. And I give that band tons of props. I've seen them probably half a dozen times over the years. Well, no, more than that for sure. But that was one of the best shows, but also like, it was just because I knew what was going on. Like I was aware that he was sick. He got like, what's it, like the fluids and stuff, the intravenous fluids backstage. Like he was posting a picture of that and he's like, I'm really hoping I can make it. I don't want to disappoint anybody, and so on and so on. Like it was so great for him to go out there and give not even 100, it was like 1,000,000%. Like it was insane how good that show was. But Holy Fawn I saw, Drug Church, all those bands were awesome. And yeah, I got introduced to them. And then speaking of Chicago, the Kings, in my opinion, of post rock, which I don't know if they're considered post rock, I think they're post metal, Russian Circles. Like, I love those guys. And 2 of them are from St. Louis, so booyah.
Yeah, it's a lot of those. It's just, you know, Thrice could be defined as, you know, post adjacent. You know, music genres is like, it's just explanation on media sites and organizational record stores, because everything's so fluid nowadays. So, you know, it's always hard to explain when you start an act, you know, and this episode could be, you know, for new artists out there or people who want to explore more music about like trying to promote yourself. It's always easy and hard at the same time, because it's easy to throw something out there, but then in the development of your music, and when you really put, you know, pen and paper and guitars to amps and things like that, and all the other metaphors, you can see how things develop over time. So you could have the intention to start as an emo band or a post-hardcore band, and by the end of it, and after you record, write and record and find your members and find your stride, you can be developed into something completely different. You know, my favorite example, because they're so huge, is Loom right now, where when they jumped on, they were almost like a shoegazy-esque band. They got signed to Equal Vision. They were almost a, you know, post-hardcore band in a sense, with like post-rock vibes. Then they decided to leave and go on their own, and their most recent record that they recorded, produced, and released all on their own is like almost the level of like slowcore or just like this, you know, almost ambient metal type shit. And you're like, what is going on? And that shows you the process of everything, of how music can be developed, and the artists and the creation of it.
Oh, definitely, definitely. And the thing is that, like, whenever someone says, well, what do you sound like? It's like, well, I can tell you where I got the inspiration for this thing right here, but it's not, you might have a different interpretation of it or whatever. Cause like the first song that Patrick and I had written together, I couldn't tell you what it sounded like, but I could tell you, like, oh, this guitar player was what I was listening to at the time. So I was ripping him off, and not literally ripping off, but got that vibe going at that time. And you can listen to my stuff and his stuff back to back and be like, the similarity is that you're using reverb and delay. That's about it, but other than that, it's like, well, I don't know. And I think we were trying to figure out, like, not necessarily where we fit in, but like how to describe us. And we are like, I don't know, a lot of like I never really realized what post-hardcore was until like I looked at the list of bands that were, in Wikipedia that are under that list. And I'm like, oh yeah, I like a lot of these bands, so I guess, yeah, post-hardcore is cool, whatever. I never really thought about it. Or, post-rock, I thought it was just like rock music without words. And then apparently that's not the case, because, a lot of them have words and, that kind of stuff. So it's just like, yeah, genres are more of just like a Cliff's Notes of trying to get an idea or a grasp on, what the sound is, because you could say, jazz fusion and it not sound like that at all. It could be Mars Volta. Technically Mars Volta could be jazz fusion, but not really, you know what I mean? Like, that's not the idea that comes to your head whenever you say that. So, but I went off on a tangent there. But it is, yeah. But no, I'm like, that's why, like, I'll say, like, okay, yeah, we're a little bit like space rock, because we talk about, or there's song titles that have to deal with space. The band name was Astronaut Cosmonaut. So space rock, a little bit. Alternative, sure, that's a bigger umbrella. Post-hardcore, sure. Post-rock, sure. There's ambient parts, it's kind of like all of that mishmash together. And there's little bits and pieces of all that stuff in there. It's just a matter of figuring out what to call it. But then at the same time, if you call something by that, then it's like you're in your own genre, because there's no other bands that are going to sound exactly like you. So
from our collaborating and the way we write, it's more based off like feeling and stuff, of what type of feeling do we want to convey with this song? Where do we want to go? Like coming up with parts and stuff are great, but like I'm a huge fan of just jamming ideas and stuff and just trying things out and seeing where they go. And, if it sucks, if it's good, record it. We'll come back to it, that kind of thing. So I think that gives a lot of freedom to like just be whatever we want, and not necessarily like pigeonhole us to like a certain style. So
See, I see a lot of these artists from not only the art view, but also the business view, because of my time in radio, and, I host a semi-decent podcast, and, things like that. And it's hard to explain to like the common ear, what this act is, because a lot of people a lot of people don't reach out and explore music unless it's like placed in front of them. Like, they won't go out and just like explore without some kind of direction, in a sense. So I look at it on the business side of just like, you have to somewhat establish like what you are, to explain what you are, so it helps you, when you do these opportunities. If some, yahoo from Northwest Ohio reaches out and go, I want to have you on my show, you have a better idea of how to present yourself. But then I also understand from the arts point of view, because how do you put into words the feeling of what you're putting on? It's like trying to explain a sunset to a blind person. You can give all the metaphors, you can try to explain it, but sometimes you just can't, because of the beauty and the non, physical means of getting that message across. So it's very hard to switch off between, what are we, and can we stick with that world, or can we say we're like or similar? It's a balancing act between the two worlds.
Well, it's just kind of hard to be objective about your own stuff. Like, you don't have the outsider's perspective. So kind of what I was getting at is that, like, I can tell you, like, hey, yeah, like, this part was kind of inspired by, like, Dredge. Like, that was the guitar player from Dredge. He's in Black Map now. Like, that the song that I was talking about earlier, I'm like, oh yeah, he's the guy that I was inspired by when we wrote that song. So I was like, yeah, it's kind of like that. But then if you listen to the song itself, it sounds nothing like either one of those bands. But it's hard to be objective, because it's like, oh, well, I think I played it for a friend, and he's like, I hear Muse. I'm like, really? Okay. So it's like, and Muse is like this grandiose, like, space rock, like Queen, like big, arena rock, like whatever you want to call them. I don't know. And it's like, I would not have thought of that for this particular song, because at that time we only had the one song. No, like, I wouldn't have thought of that, but that's like your interpretation. So it's kind of weird to just be like, this is what we are. And then someone else would be like, I don't hear that at all. I hear this instead. So that's why it's like alternative. It's a big enough, umbrella to just say that.
I just tell people it is melodic, aggressive rock.
So you just have the whole spectrum, so you can cover it all.
That sounds really interesting. I'm like, yeah, why don't you go check it out? www.
We sound like something from anywhere between the 1950s and the 2020s.
There you go. So you just shotgun it. That's fine. Shotgun rock.
I'll go with that. That's better than butt rock.
That's always fun to, and I talked about that because, like, the idea of butt rock is hilarious, and which would start out as a joke, but you can, like, when you explain what butt rock is, and everybody gives you a weird look about, like, what's butt rock, and then you just play anything from modern rock radio, they're like, oh, that's butt rock. So your 3 Days Grace, your Theory of a Dead Man, your Five Finger Death Punch, your Nickelback, your shit like that.
Out of all of those bands, Nickelback is the only one I've ever heard. I've literally never heard any of the other bands. I know the names, but never listened to them.
Five Finger Death Punch is the worst fucking band in existence, and
I keep hearing that.
And I will die on that hill as a not only as a former industry person, but as also a person who listens to a lot of, like, ranges of music, from the band Ranges to all the way back to, like, Foreigners, one of my favorite bands of all time, and everything in between. Five Finger Death Punch is god awful. I understand the appeal. I can get why you like it, but people shit on Nickelback, but Nickelback is at least successful to the point where they know what they are. They still played it up, and they are mega successful to the point where they're like, it's almost a joke unto themselves, because now people are defending Nickelback and questioning why Nickelback became a joke anyway, and the internet ran with both the reasons. So
I'm going to go out. I'm going to say this for the first time publicly. I actually do like How You Remind Me, that song. But I like the Sum 41 cover more, because they played on MTV back when MTV played music for the New Year's Eve, like traditional cover. And they go, this is a Canadian national anthem. And then they started playing it, because that was like the biggest song of the year or whatever at that time. And I thought that was hilarious. But I love their version of it far better than the Nickelback version. So in essence, not directly, I like Nickelback, that song.
I just feel like Nickelback, and you can recognize that Nickelback is incredibly, and we had a whole episode with that. Go check it out back at I don't fucking know my own numbers. It's our Mixed Signals episode. We're at 116 for the at the time of this recording, so there's a lot. We talked to Mixed Signals about the world of why certain artists get a bad rap for no apparent reason. So, and like the first one that came to mind was Nickelback, because in theory, Nickelback, in all sense of the word, is successful. But you can go listen to that episode. We won't bother your time on this one. So
it was the "Pants Around Your Feet" song. That's fucking horrible.
Oh yeah, well yeah, it's playing bowling with bumpers. Like it's the lowest common denominator, yet they made millions and millions of dollars, and they're going to keep millions and millions of dollars doing it because they found an audience and they're going to work at it.
Yeah, good for them.
Yeah, exactly. the ideas of the music and everything, and then trying to navigate and where you want to take it. So where do you want? Obviously, trying to find a drummer, but with Sunrise at Sea, where do you eventually want to try to, like, what's the grand plans? Where do you want to see it take? What are your ideas? How do you want to write it? Things like that. Kind of give me your bucket list of stuff.
Well, so I like when I went off on my own, I definitely had all of that, like an idea and a plan and all of that. Originally, I was going to do a full length album as like a concept. There were and like a whole piece of art, essentially. Just something that you can listen to front to back that tells a story. With the motifs and everything like that going on, because I'm a huge fan of classical music, and that might be the first like style of music that I loved as a child. Like I remember watching Fantasia growing up and things like that, and then in school taking like music appreciation and having learning about music concrete and just all these different things. And that was kind of the idea that I had for that album, which is just to have like a theme and like a little melodic passage represent a certain character or something like that. And then the same friend that said I should just sing myself, he had said, like, nobody listens to albums anymore. He's like, everything is single driven, so he's like, you should just do singles. And I was like, well, I don't want to, divide this thing up. So what I ended up doing was actually cutting the album, not necessarily in half, but just kind of cutting the fat and doing that like as an EP first. So the first EP is called Stars Fall. And those are just, it's just a regular EP. There's nothing that really connects anything together. It is what it is. And then the next one, which is, musically it's done. We need to record it and stuff like that. Like I've got let me see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of 7 songs like mapped out pretty much. Patrick needs to lay down his bass lines. But the idea for that was already up. So I've got like kind of a plan going and like a definite idea as to what we want to achieve, obviously, is to just be able to kind of do this and grow from there. But like luckily my girlfriend is a marketing genius and knows like kind of what, and that's what she does is marketing. And so she's like, well, if you have this kind of but she doesn't do music, so there's kind of a blind spot for her with that, which I kind of have to fill her in. She'll ask me questions and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, because it's done this way, unfortunately, in the music industry or whatever, typically. But she is a photographer and graphic designer and all that stuff, so it's great to have all of that in house. And she's like, well, these colors like look a little bit better than these, or whatever it is. So she's able to kind of guide me on that. But like I said, with the last year with the pandemic and everything, it was like with Astronaut Cosmonaut and me, Patrick, and the former drummer, it was just like we'd been together for 2 years and had like 5 songs. We played 2 shows and we played the same 5 songs in those 2 shows, and it's like, well, we're not doing anything. So I kind of, like I said, I wiped the slate clean with everybody. I was just like, okay, let me get this done, because I have to get I had this like need to just get the shit rolling, because I felt like 2 years and 5 songs is not enough, and so I really got it rolling and got everything done. And then I planned those 2 albums and then just a bunch of singles, like songs that like non-album singles. I've got, sorry, I'm reading my board, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah, so 5 non-album singles, and then like 8 songs on one and 4 on another. So however many that is, so it's like I've got kind of the mapping going on. But I can't really say where it's going to go, but the goal is obviously to be able to do it full time. Would be awesome, of course, as with anything creative, but we have to be realistic and be able to sustain ourselves as well. Especially with me, I have 2 young ones, and you have to think about them and not, it's not like when I was 20 and only had to worry about myself. So it's a little bit more complicated when you get older.
Being an adult is a scam, let's be honest.
Goddamn right.
Patrick, what are some of your goals and some of your interests when you want to forward this project into something more than just early talks and early recordings? Where do you want to take this?
My goal has always been to have fun, create, just have a body of work that I feel proud of, something to share and then play out. And I love touring. I don't know that it's possible right now, but I always loved touring and was always down for traveling and stuff like that to play out. But I think with how music's or the situation right now, it's just kind of a difficult time, which I think everyone just needs to put all their focus into recording as much as possible and just getting as much music out there as possible with this new situation. And I love how creative people are getting with doing online shows and stuff and just broadcasting shows to people. I think that's really cool. And just people need to think outside of the box and just how can we get the same, or at least the close enough aspect of live music to people in new different ways, and mainly safe ways too, so
that's the biggest thing about the evolution of everybody right now during this time, especially a lot of artists, because either a lot of artists have just hunkered down and just bettered their craft, and then a lot of people, a lot more people have more technology and money, more and more artists are performing, quote unquote, but they're performing at a level that it's almost on demand or limited on demand. Or they're older bands. I remember Sevendust, who've been around since almost the early 90s, and they're replaying full albums in 2021, which is rad as hell, stuff like that. There's I will always go back to this because I think it's the most creative fucking thing ever, is our 100th guest with Nick DiPiero and Night Verses and Headcave. Not only is he and his other members of his band Headcave are pumping out music left and right, but he is on Twitch developing music in front of you, where he's just developing songs and putting drum plugins in and watching that live on Twitch, that hours later he has full songs then he'll later on put out for free on Bandcamp. And he did more than over 100 of them.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I love Sevendust, by the way.
Oh yeah, I do too. I super underrated band that just even before, because they started becoming more and more known, quote unquote, during the new metal world, but even then, they've always skated under the radar, no pun intended, about everything, but they've still become relevant. And they still put on a hell of a show. I saw them live years ago from Rockin' the Range when I was in post-college, back when I actually had hair. But seeing them live was incredible. But it's when this is all said and done, the creative boom and the venues and hopefully more shows and more people touring and everybody's going to be itching to get out there more. I really think a lot of good stuff is going to be coming out when all's said and done, which is, it could be this year, could be next year, who knows. But I know that there's a better direction and a light at the end of the tunnel finally, and I think this is the start of it. So start pumping out, start promoting, start putting out your stuff that you've been working on. And if you haven't worked on anything, it's okay that you didn't. Shit's infuriating out there. Have you been outside? It's fucking mad.
Yeah.
Just, it's crazy.
I think a lot of bands are sitting on stuff to wait until they can tour the music. And I don't know if that's the right thing to do.
Honestly,
You
like
know?
it's gonna show you that like maybe the touring world, while people missed it, was not a necessity.
Yeah. I don't know.
It's a weird situation to be in right now, because like everybody loves live music and you want to put on shows, but like, do you need to like overwork yourself traveling state lines to see other bands that possibly, you know, nobody's going to see you if you're not from the town or anything? It's gonna be interesting to say the least, and relearning some of those skills if we ever go back. In a sense, it should be wild. I'm always interested in other states and other cities' scenes when it comes to music. What is Missouri's scene filled with, or not filled with, or what do you want to see more of or less of? Things like that. What are your 2 cents on the music scenes around you guys?
St. Louis has. Well, the problem is we've had a lot of venues kind of close recently, of different sizes and capacities, and I think that really had a huge toll on our area. What's the one that we went to on Broadway?
And we saw Anodes.
Yeah.
That one. Wasn't that the Sinkhole?
Yeah, Sinkhole.
That's still open, I thought.
Yeah, no, that's a great venue. That's a very small, very intimate, like,
that's more like, you know, your high school band play, like it's like a basement show. They didn't even have a stage. It was like you're standing there, like the drummer wasn't even on a riser. Like it's just a big room, or not a big room, but you know, it's like a basement size thing.
But see, that's what I enjoy. I love being on the same level as the band and stuff like that. And
I know, but I'm just saying that was way small. That's different from like, that's smaller than the Creepy Crawl was. The Creepy Crawl is at, I don't know if you're familiar with this Peapod, but it was sort of famous St. Louis venue. It closed about 10 years ago maybe. But are you familiar with Story of the Year?
Yes.
Okay, so they're from St. Louis. The song that they did the video for, what was that song?
Until the Day I Die.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I don't know. They had so many songs about dying in the title, so I was like, okay.
That was the song. That was the song for Story of the Year.
Okay. Well,
in a sense,
they filmed that in the Creepy Crawl, the original they closed that one down, and then they opened up another one that was slightly bigger. But that was in the original Creepy Crawl, and it's funny that video kind of makes it look like it's a big venue. The capacity was maybe 100 people, if that. You know, it was really, really small. And then they even had I think it was more fence. Really, you think it's more than 100? Okay, it didn't seem that big. But yeah, it was really small, and there was a fence that went down the middle of it that kind of divided up the minors from the people that could drink, that could go to the bar.
Wait, so there's a fence in the middle of the venue. So there's
there was a chain link fence.
Yeah, like you walk in the door, and then like you could go to the left and then go towards the front to the stage. And it opened up a little bit, but then like the fence would go around to where the bar was, so the minors couldn't get to the bar.
It's weird.
Yep.
Yeah. And then like you could stand on the side of the stage, like it wasn't like a backstage, like the stage was like a square, and like you could stand in the front of it, or if you were looking at it, to the right of it. And then there was like the back, quote unquote, backstage area was it was a bathroom, but it wasn't a bathroom. Like it had 2 doors to go in, and you'd store your equipment in there, and there was a toilet that didn't work, and stickers everywhere and whatnot. And I mean, I played that place since I was probably 12, I guess, and I'm 35 now. So I played that place often, and my mom would call that. She goes, "Oh, are you playing that place where your feet stick to the floor?" I'm like, "Yeah, Mom." So, you know, she always remembered that much of it. But yeah, it was not a big venue at all. And Story of the Year did that video in Creepy Crawl, and they made it look pretty big. I mean, you could bring in 50 people and it'd be, shoulder to shoulder. It was not a big place at all. But anyway, we got off top. Oh, Sinkhole. So Sinkhole is even smaller than that.
Yeah, they're pretty small, but they're all about like the bands and stuff, and they're very generous with the door money and stuff like that. Sometimes I don't even think they take a cut of the money. I don't think they do take any cut. So they're just a really great venue for out of town bands. So if you're listening, Sinkhole, check it out. Whatever, they're a great place to play.
I think the Heavy Anchor. Heavy Anchor is another good venue for out of town bands.
Yeah,
they're cool. They're like they might be bigger or at least the same size as the Sinkhole, but they have there's like a stage and all that stuff, and like it's a separate bar from the venue. Like they could open up they have like a metal garage door, one of those like a retractable garage door that you can like lift up or close down if it is a smaller thing to play there. So that one's pretty cool. That's in South City also.
But as far as what you were saying about like the music scene itself, I think St. Louis has always been kind of like, you're either like there's a metal scene, which is like almost like borderline butt rock metal.
Yeah. I always say like anytime someone wants to do, they're like, oh, what's your band sound like? I'm like, we don't sound like we're from St. Charles, that's for sure.
Yeah. But so there's that, and then we have like a really strong like indie music scene with like, hardcore, punk rock. We're pretty eclectic, I'd say.
Is there any certain artists that from that area that may be on the rise or breaking out, or even maybe a future guest for this show that we should check out?
Honestly, my favorite band from St. Louis is Lobby Boxer. They're just like super great musicians, and their music's super catchy and fun. Bounce House, great band.
Bounce House.
Oh yeah.
Bounce House. They're like a synthwave pop group, So
Justin Mills is in that band, so there you go. There's the other. Yeah. So there you go. There's another connection. Talk is awesome. TOK. It's the Bosler brothers, Matt and Brian, and then Spencer is their drummer, and they are freaking phenomenal. Matt is hilarious. He's got his own podcast in St. Louis. So if you ever, you could listen to Matt F. Bosler's podcast, and he you'll see, like, you could be a guest on his thing. Peapod is what I'm saying, and you could see how like just crazy funny he is. But Talk is one of his bands, and he's in like a bunch of other bands. Like he's one of those very talented multi-instrumentalists, and he's a drummer in another one of isn't he a drummer in one of Mills's other bands?
I don't think so.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. But he plays in 1,000,001 bands. Let's see who else. My favorite local band isn't a band anymore. They were called King Thief. So I mean, you could find like stuff of theirs on Spotify and stuff like that. And then Ludo was big from St. Louis. I don't know. Are you familiar with them?
I think I've heard that name before, to be honest.
They did that song "Love Me Dead." That was like their big one. There's dun 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 dun. Like that was like the melody of it. But
I think that sounds familiar.
Yeah, they were big. They're kind of like they play shows every like once a year. They broke up for a while, I think, and then they started playing shows a couple of years ago. But they were always themed. They were really good. Let me see here.
You gonna talk about Hawthorne Heights or something?
Are they from St. Louis?
No, on his end.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
not from Toledo.
They're not. They're from Ohio. I don't think they're from Toledo. I think they're from Northwest Ohio, maybe, or Central Ohio. But they're from Ohio.
I used to have a case for my amp that was I guess it was originally from Hawthorne Heights because I bought it from some emo kid in Cape Girardeau, and it said he's like, yeah, this used to be owned by Hawthorne Heights. I'm like, so does that mean you're giving me like money off for it or what? Like, you know, is it gonna be cheaper?
Nah.
But yeah, so I'm trying to think of what other St. Louis bands. And it's been so long since I've been out to a show too. So I can't think of any off the top of my head. Like,
who knows? There could be more bands that come out once this is all said and done.
I'm hoping so, man, because you know, we need Valley's a really good one. They're kind of like a stoner sludge metal band. Like, that's not usually the type of music I listen to, but a couple of my friends are in that band. They're pretty good. Let's see here. We saw Anodes, but they're not a band anymore. They broke up like last year or something like that. That was the band that we. Who?
Path of Might.
Who's that?
They're a band. They're real good.
Oh, okay. They're a band. Yeah, I'm trying to look through my iTunes to see who jumps out at me. Oh, there's a guy from St. Louis. I don't know if you ever heard of him. His name is Chuck Berry. He doesn't play music anymore, I heard. But, you know, I mean, he's also, you know, not the most savory of humans, or wasn't, I should say. Oh my God, who else? Man, I wish you wouldn't have put me on the spot. I wish I would prep for that question. Well, so I said King Thief was one of my favorite local bands. They broke up a while ago, but the singer is in another band. He's like my favorite local singer, and he's in a band called Umbrella Boulevard, but they haven't played a show since 2015. But Brooks, the singer, had said that he's like, oh yeah, we got an album finished. They finished it before the pandemic. Because I actually hit him up to sing for us, and he's like, I love the music, but I just don't have the time. But his band's called Umbrella Boulevard. And so they'll be releasing music at some point, but you know, that could be somebody that you reach out to and try to get them on, and maybe that'll like lull them out of their slumber, and they'll actually release it, because I love them.
Oh, Clownvis.
Yeah, he's world famous.
What is it? Clown piss?
Clownvis.
Clown and Elvis. Clownvis.
Oh, okay. All right.
That's right. Oh, you know what? Actually, he's the singer in a band called Tortuga. They're awesome.
Tortuga. Naming shit is hard, man. Like these names are wild. No wonder you couldn't think of anything, Pat, from what you got.
It's true.
Well, I hopefully a lot of people got some kind of learning experience about, like, you know, trying to develop a band, trying to navigate your way, and of course Sunrise at Sea. We're very excited and glad that we can help, you know, bring a light, and hopefully people will be excited for what is coming out there. And if they're not, hey, it's another great band, another great artist, and people sharing their 2 cents on this crazy format we like to call music and podcasts. So I'm glad you guys took time out and talk with me. I deeply appreciate it. I'm glad that we have been a source for finding out music and finding your way. So that's a big honor. So thank you. That's a big compliment to hear that. So I'm very excited. Plug all of the stuff, and how can people get in touch with Sunrise at Sea?
So the website's active. It is sunriseatseamusic.com. You can find us on the socials at Sunrise at Sea STL. So like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I think that's all we have.
Of course, you can listen to this podcast on all major podcast platforms, and you can follow us on all major social medias at On the Radar PC, and our website, and all the links and all the bonus stuff that we got going on the radarpc.com. Gentlemen, anything else you guys want to add?
No.
No, I think we rambled long enough. I think we're good. We'll save some for next time.
Yeah, see, there you go. Once you tour and once we could be all together and you're on tour, you can join us and we'll have some live performances and we'll do this up big next time. How about that?
That was the reason why I wanted to get on during the pandemic, because I'm like, hey, we don't have to travel to Ohio to be on. So let me jump on this and get on virtually.
I think even post the pandemic, we'll continue doing these virtual ones. I mean, I've spent all the money on a mobile and a home setups that it'd be foolish if I didn't do it going forward afterwards. And it also connects with people that sometimes just can't fit in the schedule. We can just do it while they're on tour or when they're at a pit stop or somewhere. So
Rock on.
It's all, there's silver linings to everything, and that's what you have to do during this time. I am Peapod, you were you, and thank you so much for listening to another great episode of the On the Radar podcast.